Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to lesson 162 in history. Today, we're going to start with your presidents and your map as usual. Remember to be studying and singing along with the video. This will help you to remember. You have a test and a quiz coming up on this information. Please remember to sing along or say it along with the video if you don't want to sing. Ready?
Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Adams, Jackson, Murray, Harrison, Tyler, Polk, and Taylor, Fillmore, Pierce, Buchanan, Lincoln, Johnson, Grant, and Hayes, Garfield, Arthur, Cleveland, Harrison, Cleveland, McKinley, Roosevelt, Taft, Wilson, Harding, Coolidge, Hoover, Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush, and Clinton, George W. Bush, Obama,
and Trump. Boys and girls, don't forget, sometimes I forget to use Cleveland twice. Make sure you do that. This picture does not show him twice, but you remember he was president twice, 2 separate times. So 4 years here and 4 years after Harrison. Don't forget that. Let's go over your map. You should know these states in and out. You need to know where they are, what shape they are. Your next lesson, I think, will go over some of the different shapes and point them out. You will need to be able to pick them out of a map, which shapes they are, okay? Here we go.
Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Florida. These are the states of the East Coast. Michigan, Lansing, Ohio, Columbus, Indiana, Indianapolis, Illinois, Springfield, Wisconsin, Madison, Minnesota, St. Paul, Iowa, Des Moines, Missouri, Jefferson City, Arkansas, Little Rock, Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Mississippi, Jackson. These are the middle states. NS, NKOC, North Dakota, Bismarck, South Dakota, here, Nebraska, Lincoln, Kansas, Topeka, Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, Texas, Austin. Yeehaw! California, Sacramento, Oregon, Salem, Washington, Olympia, California, Sacramento, Arizona, Phoenix, Mexico, Santa Fe, Texas, Austin, Utah, Montana,
Helena,
Idaho, Boise, Wyoming, Cheyenne, Nevada, Crescent City, Utah, Salt Lake City, Colorado, Denver, Wyoming, Wichita, Colorado, Alaska, Juneau, Honolulu.
very good. All right, you guys had some homework last week on Friday, so let's double check that. Make sure you got all those questions right. You had 18E, which was on page 233. First one said, what words were added to the Pledge of Allegiance in 1954? Good, under God, under God, that is what was added. When did the Supreme Court remove the Bible reading and prayer from public schools? In 1960. Who was the first woman justice ever to serve on the Supreme Court? Good, it was Sandra Day O'Connor. Whom did President George Bush choose to replace Justice Thurgood Marshall? Clarence Thomas, very good, Clarence Thomas. Okay, and you also had some questions on CCU, page 237, just a few, 12 through 14. Which president is remembered as the great communicator? Ronald Reagan, very good. And 13, what was the Reagan Doctrine? Good, it was a belief that communism should be stopped before it enslaved a country. Don't forget, before it enslaves a country. They want to do, they want to help them out before. All right, and the last question here, number 14, why are Supreme Court justices so influential? They make the decision that the decisions that have consequences for years to come. Very good. Okay, boys and girls, today we are going to talk a little bit about what happened once Bush became president. We call them Daddy Bush and Father and Daddy and Son Bush in my house. But the first President Bush, who was the father, let's go ahead and, yeah, let's do this. Let's review first. I'm sorry about that. So the first court case that caused public schools to allow students from all races, we remember that as Brown versus Board of Education. Do you remember the first Japanese congressman? I know that's not a hard one, but how do we remember that? We said Inouye, Inouye. You could also pronounce it, some people I think say Inouye, Inouye. He was the first Japanese congressman. And the young black minister who organized the civil rights campaign, that's an easy one, Dr. Martin Luther King. The first Black American Supreme Court justice, good, Thurgood Marshall. The first Japanese American woman elected to Congress, Mink, very good. And the first Black cabinet member to sit on the cabinet, remember, with the president, and he's a presidential advisor, Weaver, that's correct. And what allowed for people to vote, having housing and job rights for minorities? The Civil Rights Act of 1964. All right, one more. Who was president during the 53 to 61? That was Dwight Eisenhower. Sorry about that, it's covered up. And who was Eisenhower? What was Eisenhower's idea to make the interstate highway that connects the states together? The Interstate Highway Act, very good. And the first American to go into outer space? Yes, it's Shepard. The book showed me how to compare the sheep to a shepherd as going outer space, right? They go out to pasture, the sheep, and Shepard went out to outer space. And who was the first person to go around or orbit the whole Earth? John Glenn, very good. And the first man to step foot on the moon? Yes, Neil Armstrong. And Ronald Reagan was president, right? And he was called the Great Communicator, very good. Reagan doctrine was the doctrine we discussed that about enslaving a country. They wanted to change communism or stop communism before it. And the little country, do you remember Grenada? It was a little country where President Reagan sent American troops. It was on an island by itself that was going to be taken over by the communists. And President Ronald Reagan was able to set those people free in Grenada. Very good. Mikhail Gorbachev, do you remember him? He was the president of the Soviet Union during 1987. And we're going to start today. So let's start off by talking about this man. This was a very, very bad dictator. He was the dictator of Iraq. His name was Saddam Hussein in 1990. And he was a terrible man. He was cruel. They say he was an evil person. He had the intent to conquer innocent people, almost like if you remember Hitler and all them. He had the same idea. He wanted to conquer different people. He wanted to actually steal their money. He wanted to be rich. He wanted to be the wealthiest person. So he invited this little country called Kuwait. If you look on this little map, Kuwait is so tiny. And Iraq was so big compared to Kuwait. And Saddam Hussein wanted to go in and conquer this little country. But at the time, in our country, President Bush was the president, and he sent troops into Kuwait to get the troops from Iraq out. Okay, this only took 2.5 months. Okay, the fighting went on for only 2.5 months. It was considered the shortest U.S. Um, the shortest U.S. War in history. Okay, the shortest war. I should have put that in there. Messed that one up. Sorry about that. But yes, and we called it Desert Storm. Desert Storm, Operation Desert Storm. Well, after that, Bill Clinton was president, and there were many, many different acts of terrorism during the Clinton administration. There were bombs in New York City. There were bombings in Oklahoma City. They also attacked embassies in our embassies that were in Tanzania and Kenya. Lot of different terrorism during this time. Now, right when Bush Jr., the old Bush's son, became president, right after, I believe he was only in president for a year, the worst attack on U.S. history was that the towers were both struck down. Now, it says that on September 11th, the terrorists hijacked several passenger airlines. Just means planes where people were just, there were people on, okay? It wasn't just a plane just for this purpose. They took over a plane where there was lots of people, hundreds of people on this plane. They were going somewhere, and these hijackers from Al Qaeda, which is, we'll talk about a terrorist organization, got on the plane as normal people, and they took over the plane and crashed them into the towers. It was horrific. So many people died. You'll see a short video about this on Google Classroom. Now, a lot of people died in this attack, in these attacks. What happened was they took the planes, they hit both, each plane was hit by one of the, each building was hit by one of the planes, as well as they also took another plane and they hit the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. It was tragic, so many people. And not only so many people died, but the rescue teams that went in to help also got trapped in there and died. Many, many, many people. It was a tragic day for the United States. And this person, Osama bin Laden, was the person that was responsible for all of this. He was, we call him a radical Islamic terrorist. And he was a leader, and the name of the organization was Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda. And this is when they found out that he was responsible for these hijackings and this devastation, President Bush declared war, and they called it the War on Terror. Okay. Our book also mentions that during these times in 2005, New Orleans was devastated by Hurricane Katrina. It was a huge, huge disaster in our country. Natural disaster, yes, but also became one of the biggest devastations of an area, and this was in New Orleans. Now, we did here in Florida feel the effects of this hurricane. If you can see, look at the eye of that storm, it's huge. So Florida did feel the effects, but New Orleans was the one that got the majority of the damage. Okay, so today you're going to read pages 233 to 236. Go ahead and take some notes. Make sure you remember those big facts. You don't have any homework tonight, which is great. But like I said, this is going to be a very short week of only 3 days. And next week, you're going to be on it. It's going to be a lot of work next week so that we can finish up on time and get our last tests going next week. So keep studying, keep reading. Make sure you're getting on Google Classroom to look up all that you have to do. And we will see you back in the next couple days. Make sure you're keeping on top of Google Classroom because I will be posting what assignments you need to hand in through there. I believe this is our last video for history. So I would like to, number one, say thank you for watching. And number two, say we miss you here at New Hope Christian School, and we hope to see you back very soon. We love you, and we hope to see you on June 5th for our graduation for the little students and for our parade for all of you big students. All right, we will see you soon. We love you. Have a good day.